There's a certain kind of Brazilian night where the air cools down just enough to make everyone drift toward the kitchen. Not because anything is urgent, but because warmth gathers there on its own, the low clink of a spoon against a pot, the quiet chatter of family, someone tasting the broth and saying, "Needs just a little more salt." And in so many homes across the south and southeast of Brazil, the dish that anchors that moment is Caldo Verde, simple, creamy, and deeply comforting, like a familiar song you don't realize you know until the first notes start. Today I'm taking you with me on a small documentary-style kitchen journey into this classic Brazilian soup, the kind you'll see at family gatherings, birthday parties, and those cozy evenings when people linger at the counter long after dinner is ready. We're going to build it calmly, step by step, the traditional way, for medium potatoes boiled until they're melt in your mouth soft, then blended with part of the broth until the texture turns silky and spoon coating, almost like it's wrapping the room in a gentle blanket. And then, the flavors that make it feel unmistakably Brazilian. Olive oil warming in the pot. Onion and garlic sizzling until the kitchen smells like someone's home, even if you've never been here before. Calabresa sausage browning into smoky, savory bites that perfume the steam as it rises. The sound matters, too, those soft crackles and pops that tell you the base is developing depth before the soup even comes together. But Caldo Verde has a signature detail, a final touch that's both delicate and essential: collard greens, sliced very thin and added at the end so they stay tender, bright, and light. And I'll point out the most common mistake people make here: cutting the greens too thick, which can turn that elegant finishing note into something heavy and chewy, stealing the soup's defining texture. If you enjoy calm, clear recipes that also carry a bit of culture with them, stay with me. And before we start, I'd love to know, what's your biggest curiosity about Brazil? If you want more Brazilian classics like this, subscribe so you can cook along the next time the kitchen starts calling everyone in. Now, let's set the pot on the stove and begin with the potatoes, because this is where the creaminess is born. The kitchen is quiet at first, the kind of quiet that invites you to slow down. On the counter, four medium potatoes sit like the beginning of a story everyone in Brazil seems to know in their own way. I peel them, cut them into chunks, and drop them into a pot. Water in, a generous pinch of salt, and the lid goes on. While it heats, you can already feel what this dish is about: comfort, patience, and a simple ingredient becoming something much bigger than itself. As the potatoes boil, the steam fogs the window a little, and it's hard not to think of those evenings in the south and southeast when Caldo Verde shows up without needing an introduction. Someone's laughing in the next room, someone's setting out bowls, and inevitably the conversation migrates to the kitchen because that's where the warmth is. That's the atmosphere I want you to feel here, even if you're watching from far away. When the potatoes turn melt in your mouth soft, I lift one with a fork and it almost collapses. That's the moment. I ladle part of the hot broth into a blender, add the potatoes, and blend until the mixture becomes silky and pale, like a cream that coats the spoon. This step is what gives Brazilian-style Caldo Verde its signature texture: not heavy, not watery, just smooth and comforting. I pour it back into the pot, and the soup instantly looks more inviting, like it's settling into itself. If you're enjoying this calm, step-by-step journey, tap like so I know to bring more Brazilian comfort classics here. And tell me in the comments, what's your biggest curiosity about Brazil? Now the flavor base begins. In a separate pan, olive oil warms and catches the light. Onion goes in first, softening until translucent, then garlic, just long enough to perfume the air without burning. The sound changes when sliced calabresa hits the pan as sizzle, then that smoky aroma that feels unmistakably Brazilian. Let it brown a little, those browned edges are where the depth lives. In the next moment, we bring this whole pan of flavor to the creamy pot, and then comes the green detail that many people get wrong, so stay with me. If you like this kind of documentary-style cooking, subscribe naturally, because the best part of Caldo Verde is right at the end. While the potatoes soften, the kitchen starts to smell like anticipation. For medium potatoes, peeled and cut into chunks, sit in gently boiling water with just enough salt to wake them up. I keep the heat steady, not aggressive. This soup is comfort, not a race. You'll know they're ready when a fork slides through like it's going through butter, and the edges start to surrender into the broth. I scoop out a portion of that hot cooking liquid and set it aside, because in Brazil we don't waste flavor. Then the moment that makes Caldo Verde feel almost magical: potatoes into the blender, a ladle or two of the broth, and the lid on. The sound is soft, steady, and when you open it, what used to be humble potato turns into a pale, silky cream that clings to the spoon. That texture is the heart of the dish. Not heavy, not thin, just that spoon-coating warmth that feels like it belongs on a cool night with good conversation nearby. Now we build the base the traditional way, in a separate pot. Olive oil goes in first, then diced onion and minced garlic. Listen for that gentle sizzle, the one that says, "Stay close." I stir until the onion turns translucent and sweet, and the garlic releases its perfume without browning too fast. This part is pure Brazilian kitchen rhythm, simple ingredients, treated with care. Then comes the calabresa sausage, sliced into coins. As it hits the pot, the smell shifts, smoky, savory, a little spicy. The edges start to brown and curl, leaving tiny traces of flavor on the bottom. I let it take its time, because those brown bits are like little stories stuck to the pan. When the sausage looks golden and confident, I pour in the potato cream and stir, watching everything turn into one smooth, comforting green lassi. If you're enjoying the calm pace of this kind of cooking, tap like so it reaches someone who needs a cozy recipe today. And tell me, what's your biggest curiosity about Brazil? In a second, we'll get to the signature detail, the collard greens. There's one common mistake that can turn this soup from delicate to chewy, and I want you to avoid it completely. If you'd like more Brazilian classics explained like this, subscribe and stay with me for the final, most important step. When the potatoes are finally so soft they almost fall apart at the touch of a fork, the kitchen changes mood. The steam carries that gentle, earthy smell that feels like home, even if you didn't grow up with this exact recipe. I scoop them out carefully and save part of that cooking broth, because that liquid is flavor in structure. Now comes the step that makes Caldo Verde feel so Brazilian. We don't leave the potatoes in chunks. We transform them. Into the blender they go with a ladle or two of the hot broth, and you can hear the shift from rustic to silky as the blades turn. The cream that comes out isn't heavy or dairy-rich, it's just potato and broth, but it coats the spoon like something much more decadent. Back on the stove, the pot is waiting. Olive oil warms, and then in goes onion first, just until it turns glossy and sweet, followed by garlic. That moment is pure soundtrack, the soft sizzle, the smell rising fast, the sense that something comforting is about to happen. Then we add calabresa sausage, and it's like inviting the party into the pan. The slices sear and brown, releasing smoky paprika notes and that unmistakable Brazilian street snack aroma. I let it get a little color because that's where the depth lives, and I stir slowly, watching the edges caramelize. Now we reunite everything. The potato cream slides into the pot, kneading the sautéed onion, garlic, and calabresa. The soup turns pale gold with specks of flavor, thicker than a broth but still light on the palate. I lower the heat and let it settle, just long enough for the flavors to marry, and you can almost feel the room getting quieter, like everyone's waiting for the first bowl. Here's the detail that people rush, and it changes everything: the collard greens. They need to be sliced very thin, almost like ribbons. If they're too thick, they won't soften delicately, and you lose that signature lightness that makes Caldo Verde so comforting instead of heavy. I sprinkle the ribbons in at the end, just a brief simmer, and the green stays bright, tender, and alive. If you're enjoying this calm, step-by-step journey, leave a like so I know to bring more Brazilian classics. And tell me in the comments, what's your biggest curiosity about Brazil? In a second, we'll fine-tune the seasoning and get to the part where the first spoonful tells you exactly why this soup always pulls people back into the kitchen. With the potatoes already boiled until they almost give up at the touch of a fork, the kitchen shifts into that quiet, focused part of the recipe where everything becomes texture. I ladle a bit of the hot broth into the blender with the potatoes, and you can hear that low, steady whirl turning something simple into something silky. When it pours back into the pot, it's not just soup anymore, it's a pale, creamy base that coats the spoon and promises comfort before you even taste it. Now we build the flavor the way so many Brazilian kitchens do it, without rushing. A splash of olive oil goes in, then onion first, letting it soften until it turns translucent and sweet. Garlic follows, just long enough to perfume the air, and right at that moment the calabresa sausage hits the heat. The slices sizzle, the edges bronze, and the whole room smells smoky and savory, like a weekend gathering about to start. This is the point where people in Brazil tend to drift into the kitchen, drawn by sound and aroma, leaning against the counter, talking about life while the pot does its work. I stir the brown calabresa into the creamy potato base and watch the color deepen slightly as the fat and spices melt into the soup. A small taste tells you everything. It's mellow, but not bland, rich, but not heavy. You can adjust salt carefully here, remembering that the sausage brings its own seasoning. And then comes the detail that makes Caldo Verde feel light on the tongue: the collard greens. Thinly sliced, almost like ribbons. This is the most common mistake I see people make, cutting the greens too thick. When they're chunky, they fight the spoon and dominate the bite. When they're thin, they soften just enough and stay delicate, like a fresh green note on top of all that warmth. I add them at the very end, because they don't need to cook long, they need to stay vibrant. If this is bringing you a little calm just watching it come together, leave a like. And tell me in the comments, what's your biggest curiosity about Brazil, food, culture, daily life? In a second, I'll show you the exact finishing moment, when the greens are perfect and the bowl becomes unmistakably Brazilian. When the collard greens go in at the very end, everything changes. The pot that looked like a simple cream becomes alive, little ribbons of deep green drifting just under the surface, still bright, still delicate. This is the moment to lower the heat and breathe it in. You'll hear that soft simmer, see the sheen of olive oil, and catch that warm, smoky aroma from the calabresa rising with the garlic and onion. Give it a gentle stir, not a rush. Caldo Verde isn't meant to be bullied, it's meant to be coaxed. Now, taste. Not just to check salt, but to understand balance. The potatoes give you that spoon-coating comfort, the sausage brings savory depth, and the greens lift the whole bowl so it doesn't feel heavy. If it needs a pinch more salt, add it slowly. If it feels too thick, loosen it with a splash of the reserved broth and let it settle for a minute. And remember the most common mistake: thick-cut greens. If they're wide and stiff, they turn this soup into something chewy and blunt. Thin slices melt into the caldo, giving you that signature lightness Brazilians expect, especially in the south and southeast, where this shows up at birthdays, winter nights, and those gatherings that somehow end with everyone standing around the stove, talking as if the kitchen were the real living room. Serve it hot, in a deep bowl. In Brazil, you'll often see it with a simple side, maybe bread to dip, maybe nothing at all, because the soup is the whole story. Watch the surface, creamy pale gold, dotted with rounds of calabresa, and those green threads that make it feel fresh. It's comfort, yes, but it's also a smart bowl: fiber from the greens, vitamins tucked into that bright color, and protein from the sausage, all wrapped in something that tastes like home. If this recipe helped you picture Brazil a little more clearly, leave a like so I know you want more dishes with this kind of cultural heartbeat. And tell me in the comments, what's your biggest curiosity about Brazil: its food, its traditions, or the everyday little rituals that make it feel so alive? If you'd like to keep traveling through Brazilian flavors with me, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next kitchen journey.